was like Price is Right. Come on down.
Come on
You're
down.
the next contestant.
Hello.
Hello. Guys, Peter's the special surprise guest.
I know, that's what I was like. Are you going to be a part of this?
How could I possibly say no to this?
Thanks for joining us. And between the three of you, so Spartacus, True Blood, Vampire Diaries.
Not on the same episode.
I know, not on the same episode. Unreal, Gilmore Girls, and then we've got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we've got Lost, we've got Alias, and then we've got a show here that seems to contain all the genres, possibly all at once. Can you talk a little bit about, Monica, balancing this, tonally, structurally, just the fact that there's horror, there's fantasy, there's romance, humor.
I mean,
this has it all.
What I loved about the books was just that it felt like it accommodated this world that was like full of possibilities, and her imagination is so wild. And I mean, there's a talking cat. And
Isn't he awesome?
and,
Who voices that cat, by the way?
Not me.
I don't.
Next question.
Move on. But I'll commit that to memory later.
He's been recast.
But I'm never there when the cat's being recorded.
Being recorded in the
I'm
recording
just
session?
there the hours that you're trying to get the actual cat to sit in one spot.
Y'all. We're all there
So
for
they're,
that.
Cats are
animals.
uncooperative.
Yes, exactly. But no, what I loved about the books were they were romantic and they were sweet, and there was this sense of like kind of almost an old-fashioned sense of community, and then you had this supernatural element on top of that. So for me, it just felt like I describe it as all my favorite things in a blender.
Monica loves food
I
references.
do love food references. I love food. But for me, like, I kind of think of the show a little bit like every episode's a carnival ride. That it starts in one direction and it flips you over, and sometimes you're scared and sometimes you're laughing, and then at the end of it you're sort of breathless. And that was sort of our mantra in the writer's room of taking all those different elements and sort of using them to our advantage to make it surprising and wild and weird.
We love weird.
We start off with this pilot episode meeting the town, sort of taking this whirlwind tour through all the characters. They all have secrets. Some we kind of get an inkling of. Some we're just told outright, I'm a vampire. After this, going forward from this pilot, do you start to peel back each character one at a time, or is it always an ensemble thing?
There's always an ensemble element to, I would say, most of the episodes, but I do feel like every character gets an episode where you learn a secret about them. You unpack either a history or you do a reveal of power. Every episode centers or has a component of one character that you really get to know. So by the end of the season, you'll know the Midnighters, and you'll know kind of what makes them tick, but they all have a lot of secrets, so hopefully we'll get to tell more of them.
That means watch the show.
Yeah.
Arielle, what drew you to the role of Olivia? What was it initially? Because in this first episode, like I just said, you don't know that much, so it does take going forward to learn more about her. What drew you in?
Again, watch the show. Thank you. First of all, thank you guys so much for being here. It means so much to me, and
Yes,
I love ATX, obviously, but to be able to show our show here means the world to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
She'll
moderating.
do that.
So Olivia, my goodness, she's complicated. Immediately I loved her strength. Obviously, I loved that she was a badass. I was like, bow and arrow, got it. But beyond that, she's described in the books as having all these anger issues, which you see in episode 1. And I just thought, my God, this woman's going to teach me so much. And I felt like in a weird way, she was also going to allow me to release a lot of parts of myself that I hadn't necessarily been able to release before. And so I don't know, it was kind of one of those unexplainable things where I got it and I just knew. And the weirdest part about knowing is that as it goes on, I'm like, shit, what's going to happen next? Because I feel like she's such a special character in my own life and my own journey as an actress and as a woman that I'm actually excited to see what Olivia does next, because I feel like she just continues to teach me. So for me, she's just been a blessing.
Now, Arielle and Peter, the two of you contribute a lot. There's a lot of comedy in the episode, but particularly between the two of you. I mean, even just the way that you...
It's supposed to be funny.
but that you treat strangers. I mean, actually, I like to imagine that everybody who wanders through town, you hit in the face with brass knuckles. It's just the initiation, the toll.
That's her being nice.
But Peter, we see you be vicious in the episode, but also you're kind too, but with a little bit of an edge. But also you're very once you hear that Grandma Zelda's involved, you're like, hey, welcome to Midnight.
Well, that's the thing about being around for a couple 100 years. You've had relationships. Yeah, I think Lemuel has the sort of, how do you play dead and still have a relationship? You got to have a sense of humor about this, and that's part of the fun of the show, is that these characters are such oddballs and hard to explain and complicated and layered, and somehow or other they are relatable. And that's part of the fun of this. It's incredibly charming, even though it might deal with some dark stuff and also have these aspects of all being outsiders, all would have been thrown out of one community or another, but somehow in this community they've found family. And I think that's what Lemuel is. He's sort of, he's vamped around the world and has found this quiet spot and found a hot girl. He's good.
What would you say Lemuel's role is in this family? Is he the patriarch? Is he just a watcher over everything?
Well,
Just a watcher over? That's a big job.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you haven't met all the other characters really yet.
Okay.
So you've met Lemuel, and he's got some intense power and ability, and these relationships have yet to be explained, and they might go back a long way. So he is a protector. As I said, he's found a home, and he's found people that take care of him just as much as he takes care of. So, yes, he protects, but I actually think that he also feels safe here.
Monica, adapting this from Charlene's books, how would you describe the differences or the similarities even between the Midnight Texas world and the True Blood world? They both have similar aspects. There's small towns, there's persecution, there's a lot of elements of people being called freaks and alienated and so forth, but is there a difference between them? Is there a tonal difference?
I mean, I think for me, what makes Midnight special is it's got this kind heart in the middle of it, where all these people who've never felt at home or who've been persecuted or who've suffered found a place where they're accepted. Which is very different than True Blood. I mean, I do feel like True Blood, from that first, the first cold open, it's about desire and blood and body fluids. And sex. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it is so sex, but it's about sex. I mean, that show was about sex. That was its topic. That's what its theme was. It was exploring relationships through that lens. I think Midnight and the books, frankly, because when I read them, I was like, do they really want to do Charlene for network? But then I read the books, and there's nothing in them that we couldn't do.
Well, hang on a sec. What did you guys think about the leeching?
I loved...
What?
Yeah, sexy. Yeah, it's very sexy. Well,
hey, I got blue eyes.
So, that's a good question. What would you describe as going on there? What does Olivia get out of the leeching?
I mean, there's clearly pleasure in that, but what we find out about Olivia is she would be a very different person if someone wasn't leeching her pain and her anger. And so there's an emotional component to that sexiness that makes that, I mean, for me in the books, when I read that part of it, I was like, whoa, this is an emotionally driven, supernatural, love story that it's because of who they both the pain that they bring to the relationship, but then also his abilities that help her. And there's something beautiful about a love story where your abilities can help each other be a more like honest and centered and not rageful, scary person.
Yes. I was just going to say, and building off of that, I am really excited for you guys to see the entire series, because as much as I love our relationship and what you'll find out about both of our backstories and why we have this deep connection and really what leeching means to both of us on a deep, like primal level, I also feel like happens with every character on their own journey, and we all have such different lives and such different backstories, but there's not only secrets, but there's love and there's pain in everyone's story. And I just feel like what's so special about this show is, like, yes, we have the supernatural element, and yes, we have the comedy element, thank God, but really, like, isn't that each and every one of our lives today? Like, don't we laugh one minute and cry the next? And sometimes we don't know why, and sometimes we know exactly why, but we try to pretend that we don't. And I just love, as the series evolves, I feel like there's even times that I watch other characters and I feel their pain or their joy. And I just hope that you guys feel it too, because I feel like that's part of what's so special about Midnighters, is like there's something for everyone.
Monica, can you talk a little bit about casting this show, changing possibly some of the characters from the books in a way that, say, would fit Peter Mensah, whose character would be maybe possibly different in Charlene Harris's book.
Yes.
Is it something that you had in mind, or had in mind when you saw Peter Mensah?
Well, when
This is really good for me.
when Peter came in, I knew he was Lem. But up until that point, a lot of what we did with casting, frankly, except for certain roles that had to be one way for plot reasons, we really opened it up. I mean, I feel like we tried to, we saw people of all types for all these different roles, and it became very clear when I watched the performance and when Nils would watch the performance, who felt like they took it and did something amazing with it. And so, you know, I mean, casting a show is really hard, and casting this many people on a show is really hard. So we were open. And I think that some people came in and we had our Bobo and we had our Olivia and we had our Creek, and then it was like weeks. Like, there was a point where I was like, oh my God, we're gonna have puppets. We're gonna have puppets. There's gonna be a puppet Fiji and a puppet Lamb, and I don't know what to do. And then actors that we wouldn't have considered like 5 weeks earlier came in and just nailed it. And it was just like, I feel like for me, part of the process has been taking the heart and the spirit of these relationships and these characters, and then finding this glorious cast that brings so much to the table, and then letting the story evolve from there. Because TV and novels are different, and there's a truth to that. Like, we need act outs, and we need commercial breaks, and there are things that, you know, we need plot, a lot of plot, and the books move at a small town pace, which is wonderful as a reader. I love spending time in Midnight as a reader, but when you're doing a television show, you need incident and plot and story. So it just became about like the combination of the two, but I feel like I love those characters, and I loved them when I read the book, and I was protective of things about them. So Lem, I wanted a Lem that when he walked into a room, everyone would turn, and a Lem that was striking and you noticed, and that it would be you wouldn't immediately think he was with Olivia. And I think, you know, I mean, there's,
hey yo,
you know what I mean? Like, there were just like components.
All I wanted was a quiet life.
Guys, we're just like an Oreo up here, okay? We're just like an Oreo. It's fine.
This is my life.
You're welcome.
Can you guys talk a little bit about shooting? You were in New Mexico, is that correct? And I know you just drive over. Yeah. Now, you probably didn't see a lot of day shoots, your character, but what was it?
Always picking on the vampire.
But Why was it important to sort of get out there into the open and not do it on a soundstage and just be on location like that for the show?
I mean, there was something about Midnight that felt like a Western to me, and I love Westerns. And so for me, like the idea of the crossroads in the middle of nowhere and the showdowns on the main road, like I felt like we needed that. That's part of the story. Like Midnight is the crossroads, and that matters in Charlene's book. So, and it gives it just a really like cinematic lens. I mean, the sunsets and sunrises are ridiculous, and we use them because some people wake up when the sun goes down, and so, you know, I mean, it's part of our storytelling too, that the town has a very different vibe in the daytime and the night, and so we wanted a place that felt remote and beautiful and striking, and New Mexico gave us that.
Are you from New Mexico? Cool. Green chili.
Arielle, you're the closet filled with weaponry based on your own walk-in, or just...
You sure you want to know this?
Why don't I show you?
What the when we first meet your character, that you're wearing a wig, is that a little nod to Alias there, perhaps?
First of all, is anyone going to see her panel tomorrow? Alias.
But to be fair, that was a nod to Run Lola Run. So I feel like I'm taking the nods and stretching them out.
Which I also love.
So, yes.
Okay. Manfred's house. It's on a show with a lot of things that stand out. For some reason, it really also stands out to me. I've watched the pilot a couple times, and it's just this tiny little house in between two buildings, and yet it's, I guess, is it the source of something on that location, or is Midnight the source?
Midnight's the source.
Okay.
But he just happened to sort of call some stuff out.
Call some stuff out.
Yeah.
Now he can't go in there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a good set. Yeah. It also is such a like sad little house. Like there's something about it that makes me laugh every time I see it, because it's like the worst feng shui of any house. like sort of in the shadow of big buildings, tucked back. Like it looks like a shed.
And it's so bad now that he's in his own camper out front.
Yes, he's back with grandma, which is, you know.
Peter, you played a vampire before, but this vampire has sort of different rules to it, different powers that we haven't seen. Is there anything else about this character, about Lemuel, that we're going to discover that's maybe not what we might expect from a vampire from other things we've seen?
You know, actually, let's face it, everything about Lemuel is sort of unusual, and thank you, because it's fantastic to actually come in and try and play something. I played a vampire before, more traditionally, and in this particular case, he was integrated into a society. You know, so as I said, he's dead, but he's living. He has relationships. He has a relationship, sorry, and.
Want to see my weapon closet now?
Excuse me. And he's also, you know, he's got family. So it's walking that fine line of you're a fantasy character that is in real life. And yes, so it was a different challenge altogether. And developing those relationships and reacting to situations and showing more of an emotional range than you would typically see from a vampire was part of the fun of doing this.
And Arielle, going forward with Olivia, is there going...
She breaks up with Lem. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, almost immediately.
Every day.
Today.
Is...
Just kidding.
We
Don't worry, watch the season. You'll be happy. I'll be happy. Okay.
What are we going to learn possibly about your character's father and that relationship going forward? What can you tease about that?
You just got me in my heart. How many of you have you guys read the book series? Or no, not at all. No one reads. You've read it. Okay. So Olivia has, for those of you who don't know, Olivia has a very painful past, and as the series goes on, we'll learn about her childhood and the things that have happened to her that have really made her the woman that she is today. And for me, it was really important to explore the love beneath the hurt and the anger. I feel like when someone is that angry, when you first meet them, it's like, okay, so what's really going on, and what have they been through, and how can I get to that story? So as the series goes on, we learn more about both her stepmother and father. And to be honest, I feel like it's just as painful as that story is, it's really just scratching the surface. And there's a lot more to tell, hopefully, in the future. And again, it's kind of what I said earlier. I just really feel like you guys get a chance to go with each character through the season, because through all the couples' love stories, Manfred and Creek and Bobo and Fiji and our characters, there's so much love. We all go through love stories, and then through those love stories, we learn about each other's past and our histories with our families. And who doesn't have stuff with their family? Okay. I mean, so I feel like Olivia is just one slice of the pie of this, like, how we all come to be who we are, and also why we are in Midnight.
Because they're all there. Something drove them away from their families and away from the world to find a place to hide in Midnight and a place where they're safe. So there's all the stories around that drove them to this.
Just wait until you find out about the cat.
Yeah, exactly. But really also, like, what is family? What is the definition of family to you, the audience, and to everyone watching? Because that's also, sometimes it is blood related and sometimes it's not. And I think both are equally as important.
Now, I'm going to ask the audience for some questions here. So think of some questions. I'm going to ask another one. While you think of some, I'm just going to look for hands, and you can just call it out. I think we can just hear people talk in this room. Monica, I wanted to ask, there are books to this. You are adapting something. Is the idea to sort of take it through one book, one season, or does it not follow that route?
The first season of Midnight is books 1 and 3, which means there's 2. But to be honest, part of the reason I even wanted to develop Midnight is I felt like those books just scratched the surface of these characters, and I wanted more at the end of the 3rd book. If Charlene blesses us with another book, that would be awesome too. Hi, Charlene. But these characters, I felt like there was more to mine. So, but using her crazy world as a template for those stories will be, still good if we're lucky enough to have to go past them.
Great. Who's got a question? Okay, first thing, just letting you know, there's a bright light here, so I'm going to try to see if there's some in the back, but there's one right here in the front first.
I just want to ask Peter, how comfortable are your vampire eyes? And since you played vampires before, I guess you're used to it.
I pretty much have to rely on my hearing when I'm wearing those lenses.
It was fun to play jokes on him. I'm just kidding.
Didn't know what was going on around me. Trust me, that's all acting. I can't see a thing. What happens is you can see, but they have issue with changing light. So, I can't dilate and retract. So there are issues once I hit a spot. And they have to sort of, while I'm being busy being menacing, I actually can't tell who I'm menacing.
Any other questions?
Right here is a question. Let's call it out.
I have a kind of silly question.
All right.
So, since Lemuel seems to have an affinity for Manfred's grandmother, any chance that he may...
Okay. I'm glad you picked up on that, because I turned at him really quick when he knew who Zelda was.
That's really an awkward question, thanks. Let's just say it's part of the backstory to be discovered and explained.
That was so smart.
Monica, can you talk a little bit about the spirit world on this show? Are there spirits with evil intentions, or are they vary person to person, or?
The Manfred spirits should move on. Once life ends, spirits should go. The ones that are tethered onto this world, there's something unresolved. There's a reason they're being kept here, and poor Manfred has to deal with these unresolved issues, whether it's someone murdered me or whether it's I'm angry. But these spirits are generally not happy. So that's sort of our conceit, that all the spirits, have a reason they're there, and it's not good. And it's not good for spirits to just hang out. In my mind, it's like when that guy who graduates high school and won't leave, and he's still there, and it's like 3 years later, and you're like, why do you still hang out with high school kids? That's what I think of them.
Florida.
Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry, just
Go right ahead.
really quickly. One of the things you asked earlier, what drew me to Olivia, but for me, it was also what drew me to the show. And I knew there was something special, but as the show's gone on, I've learned so much more, and I'm so proud to be a part of the show, and I just would be honored if Monica would share a little bit about her backstory, because I think it's...
No, it was, this show's, it's weird, because 2 falls ago, both my mom and my mom-in-law and my dog all died within 4 weeks of each other, and it really blew. And so then afterwards, I was like, all right, I need to get my mind off of things, and what do writers do? We write stories about people we're interested in. And I got this book sent to me, and within 2 chapters, I was like, all right, I have to do it, because my mom lived in this tiny town in the middle of nowhere, and my mother-in-law was a psychic who moved to a small town. So it just felt to me like it's like I tried to get my mind off of it, but they were up there going, deal with your issues. So, and it's funny because when I was breaking the story early on, Manfred was alone. And it's really hard to get story out when a character's by himself and doesn't know anyone and has no one to talk to. And I would talk to my mother-in-law's ghost in my mind, because, she wasn't really there, but in my mind she was there. And I talked to her, and I was like, Zilda! So that's why Zilda to me is both a reason for us giving Manfred someone to talk to, but also, it would be nice if our relatives hung out in our cars and talked to us.
That's awesome. Question right in the front.
How much of the original source material have you read from an acting standpoint? Does it affect your choices or what you make on the actual script when you get them?
What was the first part?
How much of the material have you read? So if you're really far ahead, do you make certain acting choices because down the road this is what's going to happen?
Because of the books?
Because of the books.
Well, my character is a tall, thin white guy.
I believe the word was albino.
Yeah.
Politically correct, not so much.
Yeah, no, Manfred's first thought was he's as white as snow in the book.
In the book. I failed that part. I read the books once. I got the call and sort of tried to learn about the town and the characters, because it's about relationships and the stories. And my job is to craft a character that goes through situations, and to predetermine it takes away a lot of the spontaneity that becomes what we normally do. So I just gain the information just to know, and then you sort of allow the story to inform you about what to do next.
Arielle, did you read the books?
What books? Sorry, guys. Yes, I did. I had not read them before the audition, and I will say something happened in the audition. I was excited to audition, but something happened in the room for me. It was a creative outlet for me. I had never been given the opportunity to have so much fun being angry, actually, and to allow the feelings of anger to come through instead of being ashamed of them. And I left, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this, but I feel like I need to be this character. And so I'm very grateful I got to be. That's awesome. But so as soon as I was cast, I started reading the books. The first 2 had come out. We were actually waiting on the 3rd to come out when we were filming the pilot, which was last February. And so I read those right away, and I had my moments where I was wondering if I should read or not, but I just thought ultimately, you know what, I need to know the entire backstory, and then I can make a choice from there, knowing what I brought to the table in the audition, because that got me the job. So I'm like, okay, I know where I'm starting, and now I know this backstory, and now I get to choose what I bring in when, and how that works. And then that goes to the writer's room and to Monica, because like she said, combining different books at different times, it's kind of all over the place anyways. So once we get a script, I'm so involved in that, and knowing Olivia's past, that the books become kind of almost like a Bible to refer to if I need to, but it's not so much in the present moment as the actual script is, if that makes sense.
Any other questions out there? Right over here on the side.
I'm just curious. I don't know anything about the stories in the books or characters, but I was curious. It might be a spoiler. Can you tell us any reason or anything behind why you have such a huge array of seemingly conventional human weapons? Arielle, in your closet.
What's your name?
Where do you live?
Smart man. We filmed that in my house, actually. Well, I'm a hit woman. As we learn through the series, but that's just like if you're adding salt and pepper to an ingredient. That's Olivia's day job, but there's so much more to her. So, and we'll learn that pretty quick in the series. Yeah.
Because it seems like with Olivia's anger, there's still that huge sense of protectiveness that she has for the people in Midnight. So it's almost as if it's us against the world, it's her against the world, except for this small circle around me. Is that sort of the role that she plays?
That's so cool that you got that. Thanks. Yeah. I'm like, that's what I've worked so hard for. Yeah, Olivia says I love you in her actions. It's hard for her to say the words. But she says it in her actions. She says it by protecting the town. She says it by protecting the other Midnighters, and also with her relationship with Lem. I mean, they're really they are the town protectors individually, but also as a couple. And the other Midnighters know that. And you know, each Midnighter has a very specific, very important role. Fiji's role is equally as important as Olivia's role. It's just completely different. And so when we need her character trait, we go to her. When they need my character trait, they come to me. And again, I love that as part of like the messaging of our show, is like there's not one person that's special power is more important than another person's special power. It's really about what we need in the moment and being willing to honor our differences and actually call upon them to make us stronger and not shun them. God. You know, I hope you guys pick up what I'm putting down.
So even if it's something like, you know, you're going to shoot an arrow, but you're also going to get rid of the body. You're also going to get rid of the body, which is not glamorous work, but that is very important work.
Exactly. I mean, we talked early on.
Professional.
Yeah. But we talked early on, and it was never about glamorizing violence. It was never about making the guns cool. It was never about making her job cool. It was about showing her strength and her sense of protection to the people that she loves. And there's things that Olivia and Lem have to do that they know the others can't do. And so it's not about the fact that they want to do it, it's about the fact that they know they have to do it. And in life, you know, when emergency happens, that's what we do. We step up for one another.
Just to add, if that's, it's a community. So it's a community of supernaturals and normal humans. And
Okay, bye guys.
it only works when they work together. So ultimately, you know, you're only as strong as your community, and I think that's definitely what happens in Midnight.
Great. Going to see if there's one more question out there. And red shirt.
So I apologize for the controversialness of this question, but I have a little girl at home, so I'm becoming more of a feminist as I grow up. So it seemed like the scene in which everybody comes to the rescue seems to kind of sexualize the violence in that particular scene. And I'm curious if it's coincidental to the time of day, or if it was really meant to be intentional to the characters. Because you as a vampire, you take the night shift, so I suspect that you're probably not turning to around in your underwear between between the hours of 11 and dawn. And you as a hit woman, I don't know if that is going to be a character created.
Monica can
slinking around. And
It's a story.
No, it was a little nod to their hooking up. They live upstairs, they're hooking up, they heard the bikers come in, and then they just immediately went downstairs. It wasn't like they were having sexy time. So
But
like
we
in
put
that
the people
sense,
first.
so in that sense, but was it gratuitous? Like, oh, they're just like having dinner in their underwear? No, they were. I mean, they were actually, but it was just sort of to lay in that idea of these two are more than just neighbors. But it was interesting because when we tested it, there was a bunch of people who got really upset that Olivia was in her underwear but didn't notice that Lem was in a robe. And I thought that was really weird. I was like, wow.
Say something. She noticed. She just doesn't need to let him know that she noticed.
But it was just a really like sort of, it was an interesting moment because we did talk a lot about that moment and it was in the books. And so it was for me very much like, because I love that moment in the books, and in the books, Lem was completely naked. But and if we were on HBO, that would have happened.
Calm down.
But also adding to that, and for those who have read the book, it's actually been on like social media that people are talking about that scene being in the pilot because that was a very memorable scene in the books. But also there was a moment originally where it was meant to be that we were a secret. Mm-hmm. And so that was a hint to that there was something going on that other people didn't know about yet. So there was like layered stuff there.
Yeah.
Like a year later, things change, but that was also part of it.
Right. And I mean, our show is an adult, funny genre horror show, Western. That's all the things. It's all the things.
Romance,
but
comedy,
it's adult.
yeah.
And people have sex. And, we push as much as we can. Because sex is good.
The one from New Mexico has sex.
So, on that note, guys, thank you so much for coming out to the
Thank
screening.
you.
And Monica, Arielle, Peter, thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of the festival.